like to get to a place beyond capitalism and beyond Marxism. Some people are so one-sided, though, so when it comes to beyond capitalism, capitalism could save itself by instituting universal basic income, but because it's based upon greed and money, the capitalist in charge will never put money into the pockets of the consumers. But if they did that, capitalism would go on forever. My God, you're putting money into the hands of the consumers, you got your producers, you got your consumers, you got your whole system. You got the whole system. So I would like to get beyond capitalism, but right now here in America, it's all capitalism. We have public schools and public libraries, roads, bridges, Social Security. How many people are sitting on their asses taking that Social Security, that government check, right? They get that government check, right? They're on that government welfare, and then they're going to talk bad about socialism and communism when they're literally taking Social Security, socialism security. And then you got, food stamps and whatever, the lie heap and the housing program. So you have a lot of communistic, state socialistic programs in America. In America, we are not purely laissez-faire capitalists. In fact, we are very much a mixed system. You drove on a public highway. With the coronavirus that was, accepted by the CDC. So you have, government regulators, EPA, making sure the pollution and your poison and medicines aren't poison and what have you. You got public schools, you got Social Security, you got welfare, and you got TANF, T-A-N-F. So that's a lot of communism. So for a country that pretends that it hates communism, you got a lot of communism, America. And so we're just not being honest. We're just not being honest with ourselves. So we're already halfway communistic, socialistic. We have a state socialism. But here in America, it's all capitalism, right? And so it's not even compare and contrast capitalism versus socialism. The ideology of capitalism is, embedded deep within the culture. And the socialists, we get a program here and there, but ultimately it's all capitalist. It's all capitalism everywhere, all day, every day. And so there's hardly any socialists to speak of or actual liberals that, would matter. And capitalism and communism are the two leading economic ideas. So Karl Marx's place in history is secure. The specter of communism still scares the shit out of Mitch McConnell today. So the specter of communism has been scaring the shit out of America. But it shouldn't scare the shit out of America because socialism is the people. Socialism means you care. Socialism means you love and you care about everybody. So socialism is the people. Socialism is the heart. Socialism is the community. So capitalism forgets the heart, the community. They forget about everybody else. Capitalism says you got yours and that's all that matters. Make sure you get yours or you're going to die. So capitalism is very individualistic. Capitalism is, very much you take care of yourself and don't worry about nobody else. You mind your own goddamn business and shut the fuck up about anybody else's business. But having a culture and ideology that forgets communism, that means the American culture doesn't have a heart. The American culture doesn't care about the people. The American culture doesn't care about America. They care about the American, the individual American, but they don't care about 330 million Americans. They don't care about the health of 330 million Americans. So the capitalist ideology, the capitalist mentality, philosophy, what have you, has very much permeated, American culture, whether people understand what capitalism really is or isn't. Socialism is kind of there, but capitalism has won in America. Capitalism has won. And so a person is so one-sided that they only know capitalism, and anybody that says anything else is like, a socialist or a communist or whatever. Fuck those people. For those people, I'll be your communist. But if you actually want to get down to the definitions of the words, the idea of communism, that we're all in this together, all for one, one for all. The idea that we need to have a heart, we need to give a shit about one another. The fact that we need to care about the community and the people in our community. Yeah, that's precisely. Those are all the good things about communism. And so, yeah, there's a lot of good things about communism. I think the engine of capitalism is stronger than the engine of communism. But Karl Marx's place in history is secure, okay? But fuck Karl Marx.
But it's not going away. What's happened instead is that it's taken a new strategic tack, and it's one that no one really envisioned. What it's doing is taking over the administration of mid-level bureaucracies everywhere. So it's not so much a threat at the highest level of political organization, but that isn't necessarily where much of the power over individuals resides. It resides in these smaller political structures, sub-political structures, like school boards, for example, or in Canada right now, our law society in Ontario has made it mandatory for lawyers to produce a statement of principles that they provide a template for. They tell you what your damn statement of principles should be.
Well, what the hell? That doesn't make no damn sense, now does it? So, fuck Karl Marx. I got Joel Magnuson. That's my socialist. That's my left-wing economist. I don't need no motherfucking Karl Marx. It's 2021. How are we going to sit there? Karl Marx is anti-Semite. Karl Marx and Adolf Hitler would go on and on about how they hate the Jews. There's no difference between the anti-Semitism of Karl Marx and the anti-Semitism of Adolf Hitler. They called him a National Socialist. I thought that's Orwellian. Now I'm wondering if maybe he was a socialist. Maybe Karl Marx and Adolf Hitler were one and the same. Maybe Karl Marx is a damn Nazi, and maybe Adolf Hitler is a commie. Adolf Hitler is a commie, Karl Marx is a Nazi, and so that means the far right and the far left perspective, they're both in agreement that you got to genocide this small religious minority over off to the side. So fuck Karl Marx. Fuck Karl Marx. Fuck Karl Marx. We don't need Marxism today. We don't need Marxism today. Jordan Peterson is trying to catch everybody with this whole, they're a bunch of cultural Marxists. Marx is, he's an important person. I've said this a million times, and I'll say it one more time. In history, it's important. He wrote about Abraham Lincoln. Read it. He's, got a lot of interesting stuff and a lot of interesting articles. Milton Friedman is, I think, the leading capitalist that I believe in. And so his whole thing is just look at the ideas. So if Karl Marx is worth, what are the ideas? Who gives a shit about, you don't need to deify a man. Deifying a man is fallacy. So eventually, once I, have a good understanding of Milton Friedman, then I'll just have a good understanding, a good solid sense of, conservative principles. But for right now, I guess you have to deify the man to begin the study. But I'm a socialist. To be a socialist means the working class can control the means of productions. We can. As a socialist, I believe all for one, one for all. As a socialist, I'm the heart. I'm the person that gives a shit about the people in the community. And so, as a socialist, I can have all those things, and I can have those things without speaking of Karl Marx. Karl Marx, you got this conversation started. Thank you. But no thanks. Time for you to sit down, Karl Marx. You started the conversation. Communism is one of the two leading your place in history, but Karl Marx is an anti-Semitic low-life piece of shit. There's hardly any ideas. The labor theory of value, that's Adam Smith. The idea of the labor theory of value came from Adam Smith. We don't need Karl Marx for many of the reasons. Alienation, exploitation, it goes to his bias. He really, really hated the capitalists. He really, really hated them. And if the idea is a synthesis, if we're going to start off, Israel wants to get rid of Palestine, Palestine wants to get rid of Israel, the capitalists want to get rid of communists, communists want to get rid of capitalists. What if we don't start off with such an all-or-nothing, proposition? We already are half communistic anyways, America. You got your public schools, you got your public roads, you got your Social Security, right? You got that Social Security check. That's socialism. You're a communist. You're taking state socialism. You're a communist if you take Social Security. You're taking a check, and they say we paid into it. That's not how Social Security works. You're taking from the working class of today. The working class of today pays for the old in hopes that when they become old, then the working class will pay for them. So it is a Ponzi scheme. It is a pyramid Ponzi scheme. And one that, I'm basically okay with, but I don't like the contradiction. You want to sit there and be a socialist and take a socialist check? You commie, you Social Security taking commies, and then turn around and say that Bernie Sanders is the damn problem? When you're the commie who takes government money and then says that nobody else should. It's just you. Only you get a check. And it does incentivize laziness and all the, so what a hypocrite. America, you're a bunch of hypocrites. We don't need Marxism. We got Social Security. We got FDR. We don't need Karl Marx. We got public schools. We got school boards, public schools. We got public roads. We got public libraries. We don't need Karl Marx. Socialism says all for one, one for all. Socialism says the workers can control the factories, and the peasants and the slave can control the plantations. The worker, the small little nobody, the big masses, every man and woman a king or queen. You don't need the hierarchy. You don't need an oppressor managerial class oppressing you and telling you what to do. We can organize our own systems of hierarchy. We can organize our own systems of hierarchy. Or democratic systems of non-hierarchy. We can organize however we want to organize it. We don't have to subscribe to Marxism. If you ever talk to a Marxist or some of these people, they get too much into the distinctions of Maoism, Stalinism, Marxism. Fuck Karl Marx. Fuck Karl Marx. Otto von Bismarck, he banned socialists in 1878. Otto von Bismarck is the father of state socialism. But Otto von Bismarck hated socialists. But he's going to be the one that gives us universal health care and workmen's compensation and Social Security. In 1883, 1884, 1889, that's when Germany got universal health care. And it was easy to do. All they had to do is just tax the boss 1/3, tax the workers 2/3, and then they had a pool of insurance. So if you got sick, you could go to the hospital. And if the boss had workers that were not insured, then they would get fines. It was easy to pass, easy to do. Hell, universal health care in Germany was the first thing that they passed. Workman's comp and disability insurance and old age pensions, Social Security, unemployment insurance, all that came after the universal health care of 1883 of Otto von Bismarck. So Otto von Bismarck, who hated socialists, was a much more effective socialist than Karl Marx. So we could look at Sweden, we could look at Germany, we could look at so many things that's going on today. Put Karl Marx into, off to the side. Put him into the dustbins of history. We don't need Karl Marx. And then there's more reasons, but a big reason I'm going to jump up and down on right now is just he was in 1848. That's when the, Communist Manifesto was written in 1848. So why are we going to use 1848 medicine to try to solve 2021 problems? 2021 ailments need 2021 solutions. You're going to go back to the 1800s to say, okay, well, they had problems with like typhoid and cholera, and they didn't even know, how to drive a car or have a radio or none of this stuff, right? There were maybe some old stuff could be useful today, but ultimately, I'm not going to reach out for an abacus. I'm going to reach out for a calculator. You're going to reach out for you got multiplication, calculus, you got some algebra you want to figure out. You're going to reach out for an abacus? I don't even know, why would you even use an abacus to begin with? Even if you just use your damn fingers, use a stick, use the dirt. Why would anybody use an abacus to begin with? I don't even understand, but to pick up an abacus today thinking that I'm going to, do my multiplication times tables, figure it out, I probably could, right? You probably could easily use an abacus. But if I got a calculator around, or if I could just do it with pen and paper, or if I could just do it in my head, then I don't need any tools. I could just do it in my mind. So that would be that would be better and more powerful. So the idea of using Karl Marx, Mr. 1848 guy, you know what they were singing in 1848? They were singing, "Oh, Susanna." So what is it? "Oh, Susanna, won't you cry for me, or won't you die for me?" And then he came from Alabama. "Oh, Susanna." Let's see. "Well, I come from Alabama with a banjo on my knee. I'm bound for Louisiana. My own true love for to see." Terrible English. "It did rain all day the day I left. The weather was bone dry. The sun was so hot I froze myself. Suzanne, don't you go on and cry. I said, oh, Susanna, don't you cry for me. I come from Alabama with this banjo on my knee. I had myself a dream the other night when everything was still. Dreamed I saw my girl Suzanne. She was coming around the hill. Now the buckwheat cake was in her mouth. A tear was in her eye. I said that I come from Dixieland, Suzanne. Don't you break down and cry. I said, oh, Susanna, don't you cry for me. 'Cause I come from Alabama with the banjo on my knee. So we got a lot, that was fun. I'm not going to rock out to Oh Susanna. We got, fucking badass music. Even, go back to the 1940s, 1950s. I'm not going to go back to the 1840s to, look for what kind of music. What were the 1840s? Yeah, Alabama. Now I want to see what 1840s Alabama, what were they listening to? What music was that state listening to in the 1840s? Adam Smith was a liberal in 1776. He was against mercantilism. Mercantilism is commercialism, meaning that if you trade, that's good for everybody. So it's basically mercantilism is baby capitalism. So he was against baby capitalism, and he's the father of capitalism. So, okay, Karl Marx gave birth to baby communism. But now, now that we're all grown up and we have communist states, China, Russia, Cuba, Vietnam, Venezuela, and we got a lot of mixed systems, Sweden, Germany, Finland, United States. We can look at all these, see how the communism has worked. Has the mixed system worked in the United States? I think so. Having food stamps, that's kept the people from rebelling, right? That's a perfect guy. If you want a revolution in America, cut the food. Nah, cut the food stamps. That's exactly how you get a revolution in America. Make sure people don't have food and water. Make sure they're starving. Make sure they're thirsting. So, in general, you don't use 1848 prescriptions for 2021 ailments. So, let's see, abacus. Let's see, why would anybody use a damn abacus? Why would you use an 1848 knife to a 2021 gunfight? My God, an 1848 knife? I bet that shit's dull as fuck. I mean, have you sharpened it in the last 200 years? An 1848 knife to a 2021 gunfight. In 1848, the revolutions failed. So, okay, you had the Communist Manifesto, you had the revolutions, and it would have been profitable if Karl Marx would have led a successful revolution. I think Switzerland had Bavaria, Hungary. There was a couple victories for the 1848 revolutions, but essentially 50 revolutions were attempted, and 47 revolutions failed. So Karl Marx failed. Karl Marx was a loser. Karl Marx watches 4 of his own kids starved and, starved to die. Even one was an 8-year-old. So he saw, some stillborns and 1 year old. So they're very vulnerable. But an 8-year-old, so that means he knew Edward. He knew Edward. And then Edward is going to die while asleep in his father's arms. So Karl Marx, the revolutionary theorist, was a terrible father. He should have fed kosher food to his 4 kids. Make sure that food was on the up and up. Make sure it wasn't diseased. But he was anti-Semitic, so he wouldn't be kosher about shit. (1848), James Polk was the president in 1848. That'd be like asking James Polk to design a new website. What the fuck would James Polk know? What would Karl Marx know about forming a website? 1848, that's before the automobile, before the radio. I mean, you used an 1800s guide for a 2000s problem. What are you going to go back to, the 1700s, 1600s? Go back to Jesus' time? Moses? Let's get 900-year-old Abraham. Maybe 900-year-old Abraham will know something. And what a bunch of children. Who would believe that Abraham lived to be 900 years old? And then Moses ran out in the desert for 40 years? Moses, freed the Jews from the Egyptians, but then he was just in the desert for 40 years? He could have let's just live right here. We don't need to keep wandering around like a damn chicken with its head cut off. James Polk was the president in 1848. I wouldn't ask James Polk to do shit for me. 1848. And then to hate the Jews, which is what Karl Marx, he's anti-Semite. Right? He saw 4 of his own kids die, starve to death. And he was an anti-Semite, so he blamed the capitalists. He blamed the Jews. To hate the Jews, maybe there was more Jews in his society, but I feel like to hate the Jews in America is like hating the Swedes. There's no damn Swedes around. What are you fucking hating? There's no Swedes around. You hate the Swedes? Huh. You don't know who the Swedes are. You've never met a damn Swede, and you hate them from the bottom of your heart? You were taught that shit. That shit was put in your head. You made this shit. Where the fuck is this coming from? So, I'm against religion, but if you want to be religious, you know, if you want to be dumb, you have a right to be dumb. You want to believe in an invisible man up in the clouds, believe in the invisible man. You know, unleavened bread. Jews are kosher. Jews have unleavened bread. You don't need yeast for your bread. But Samson was a terrorist. Samson did not get his strength from his hair. Delilah was right. She should have cut his hair, because he was a terrorist. He went around just killing people all day, every day. Jesus Christ. Samson, goddamn, Samson was one of the worst terrorists ever. And then he's going to kill 3,000. His last final act of defiance is to kill 3,000 Philistines. Well, that's 9/11. Samson's, you're going to celebrate Samson? Then, you know, you can't get mad at people if they celebrate 9/11, because Samson, the story of Samson is the story of 9/11. So I think believing in the invisible man in the clouds is stupid. I think religion is dumb. But as a culture, as a people, I don't know enough. I only know one, and she's wonderful. Jon Stewart is a Jew, and he's hilarious. So from my, you know, biased perspective, from the 2 Jewish people that I know about, they're super nice, they're super smart, they're super intelligent. They're awesome. They're incredible people. They are fantastic. Great. Jesus was a Jew, right? So Jesus came from a Jewish culture. And they're funny as fuck. And they're opposed to war. Jon Stewart, what a legend. What an absolute legend. So his anti-Semitism is bullshit, and then he was an ineffective socialist. He was an ineffective socialist. He had decent historical analysis, wrote a bunch of articles, read his stuff. The labor theory of value, that's Adam Smith, not Karl Marx. We got Richard Wolff, we got Zizek, we got some Marxists today if you want to, you know, understand a modernized perspective of Marxism. But I don't think we need Marx. We got Joel Magnuson, and there's other left-wing economists that are Keynes. Nixon said we're all Keynesian now. So that means Nixon, we're basically saying we're all communists now. Keynesian says you need government stimulus. Government stimulus can help the capitalist system. So that means, you know, that's state socialism. That's state socialism. So Nixon said we're all communists now, essentially with John Maynard Keynes. So John Maynard Keynes would be a better economist to study. I'm studying Adam Smith and Joel Magnuson and Milton Friedman right now. But John Maynard Keynes, you want a left-wing economist that's, you know, venerated? There you go. You don't need Karl Marx. We don't need Karl Marx. I don't think Marx would have been a Marxist. And I heard that they intentionally made him scientifically want to, you know, deify him too. But I'm a social anarchist, which means I'm balanced. I'm perfectly balanced. I'm a social anarchist. Some left-wing, some right-wing, liberal, conservative. I use my heart, my brain, care about the people in the community. All for one, one for all. And actually, I think I'm a better socialist because in order to understand how capitalism and socialism is going to meld together, understanding capitalism will make you a better socialist. Understanding Milton Friedman will make you a better Marxist. So understanding Milton Friedman will make you a better Keynesian. Milton Friedman is Capitalism 101. And I think, I'm not for sure who Communism is 101. But I think it's time to get beyond Karl Marx. It's time to get beyond Karl Marx. For all you right-wing capitalist fucks, you one-sided, I'll be your communist. That's fine. That's no problem for me. But technically, I'm not a communist. I'm a social anarchist. Like, take land reform, for instance. A communist would say, okay, here's all the land. let's divide up all the land, and everybody gets the exact same portion of land. And then they would do it like every 5-10 years or some shit. I think land reform, while I think that's a good start, we could have land like that, but I don't think we should keep on doing it. Have one major land reform program, get new people on land that they never had before, but that's so that they'll understand private ownership. Once they own their own land, then they'll be a part of the capitalist system. They have, land and housing, and they can, go work and have a place for all their stuff. They have a basis, a foundation. So, land reform is anti-communistic because it gives something for people to lose. Now they got a house. Now they got a piece of land. Now they got a piece of the system. Now they're going to defend the system. If they have nothing, well, shit, they pretty much should be a communist. It would be rational. It would be irrational if they weren't a communist. You have nothing? Well, of course we all should get together and help you out. We all should get together and help everybody out. I mean, we should. Sharing, that's like a kindergarten thing, right? You should share. No, you should share. No, America, you should share. Otto von Bismarck, he banned socialists but got his workers' comp, sickness insurance, disability insurance. He was a more effective socialist than Karl Marx ever was. You got John Maynard Keynes. You have all these Joel Magnuson. You have all these much more worthy and more prescient and more au-courant, more contemporary things that would fit, right? You need contemporary solutions to contemporary problems. And so even Marxist economists, even Richard Wolff is better than going to, well, let's just read what Karl Marx would say. You can do that, but it's just for funsies, right? Like when the pioneers came out here, what did they do? How did they survive? It'd be interesting. But since we have, more tools and technology, we don't have to use their ways. We could use our own ways, our own brand new ways. 1883, Otto von Bismarck got universal health care for Germany in 1883. So yeah, Karl Marx, the king of the dumbass parade. No, we don't need to listen to that anti-Semitic fucking low life. He got the conversation. Okay, you told us what baby communism is. Let's learn from Sweden. Who's leading Sweden? Let's just listen to that person. We don't need Marx. We could get past communism, move beyond capitalism, and we can move beyond Marxism. I think it's smarter. I think it's better. It'll also take the wind out of Jordan Peterson's sails. It'll take away from his thunder. All you cultural Marxists. I'm not a cultural Marxist, Jordan Peterson. I'm a socialist anarchist. I'm not a cultural Marxist, so you're going to have to, do better than that. Karl Marx should have fed kosher food to his kids. Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump, they're still terrified of the specter of communism. Social Security, workman's comp, food stamps. We got socialism today. We got socialism today. So, yeah, fuck Karl Marx. We don't need Karl Marx, and I'm not going to sing Oh Susanna. I'm going to sing, what's that, Hard Feelings. Please could you be tender, and I will sit close to you. Give it a minute before we admit that we're through. Guess this is the winter. Our bodies are young and blue. I'm at Jungle City. It's late and this song is for you. 'Cause I remember the rush when forever was us before all the winds of regret and mistrust. Now we sit in your car and our love is a ghost. I guess I should go, yeah. I guess I should go. Hard feelings. These are what they call hard feelings of love. There's another one that I just came across. Something about summertime sadness. Summertime sadness. Kiss me hard before you go. Summertime sadness. Just wanted you to know that, baby, you're the best. I got my red dress on tonight,